thou ready for thine chairquisition? This weeketh we... I give up. I can't do demon talk. We're reviewing Bound by Flame. It's from Spiders, the Game Weavers. Built on the Silk engine. You can pick it up for $30 or $35 in Canadian dollars, because fuck you, Canada. What is it? You are a mercenary possessed by a flame demon in a desperate world ravaged by the 7 ice lords. This RPG where every choice counts. All 6 of them. You'll have to choose between unleashing the powers of the beast within and rejecting its demonic influence. And this was supposed to be reviewed 2 weeks ago, but I was too busy emptying my stomach contents on my expensive hardware. But now that that's done, we can get into the chairquisition. 1 chair means that it's garbage. 2 chairs means that it's meh. 3 chairs means that it's pretty good. 4 chairs means that it's amaze balls. We also got a categories. Oh, Doom makes with the working, shiny sounds, controls, and fun. And while Ven is scrambling to click on the right thing, let's kick this review off. Ven, did Bound by Flame make with the working?
Well, Brother Swang, everything works over here on the Ubuntu 1404 LTS. 8150 octo-core, 980 power displayed with a 4K monitor. Box of business. Even with everything on 11, I'm still averaging, somewhere between, depending if you're in town or not. You go to town, things go to shit. But, usually around 60 FERPs.
That's usually what happens when you go to town.
Unlike these other two, let's just say Pedro, I'm not having issues with my multi-monitor setup because I use separate freedom screens, and none of that other business. So we'd have to give this 4 chairs out of the box.
Yeah, I can top Ven on this because I use separate freedom GPUs, and I got no issues on the Fedora 22-powered 64-bit Intel i7 6700K with 32 gigs RAM, and the NVIDIA GTX 980 hooked up to the 4K monitor. It's 4 chairs. It works. It also worked on the Steambox with the A8 or A10 5800K, and the 750 Ti works great on that too. So.
Yeah, I have to think of a chair right off the bat, because if I try to run it on the Amiga with the FX 8370E and the GTX 970, it disables the secondary monitor if I set the game to full screen. The reason I'm only dinging it 1 instead of the usual 2 is because I played 99.98% of this game on the Steambox. And on the Steambox, it worked right out of the boxes. The Steambox has an Athlon X4 860K with the GTX 750 Ti. So there it ran out of the box, no issues. Also, one thing I noticed is this game does not respect XDG standards. It dumps the config folder and the save folder in your home without even trying to hide it. Some games will actually put like a dot before the folder name to put it hidden, but not even this one. So yeah, it gets 3 chairs.
I don't know. I'd find most XGG compliant games are a bit hit and miss. And honestly, I'd rather have the 1 folder in my home directory versus a bunch of hidden folders I gotta sift through. But anyways, that's 3 chairs for Makes with the Working. Up next is Shiny and the Sounds. Ven!
Well, it has a funky cel-shaded aesthetic. Sometimes. I mean, if you don't really notice it at first, but sometimes it makes things look downright cartoonish. That said, the first 30 minutes of this game look pretty mothering good. Notice how I said the first 30 minutes? Yeah, about that. Not that the rest of the game looks like liquid arse, but there'll be a difference. I mean, the animation rigging kind of ranges from passable to fucking really. And I would say the same goes for lip sync, but that either works or the motherfuckers on screen break out some serious telepathic shite because their mouth organs do not make with the working. And then we have the dialogue. And the one character that drove me extra crazy, Captain Demon Pants. Mr. Thou this, thou that, seriously. Not all demons speak like that. Yes, in some urban areas of the underworld, this type of speech is common, but it's not an accurate portrayal of demon culture. I'm trying to keep a level head about this because I don't want to come across as just another angry demon. Hashtag Demon Lives Matter. Shite moves and shite makes noises. I mean, nothing to report home about. Not busted, but not great. 2 chairs for that.
Yeah, then you gotta watch out with that demon cultural appropriation. Demon Tumblr might get on you and they'd be really, really mad. No, but modern 3D graphics on Linux, what year is this? Oh, wait. I mean, it's nice to see a game that looks like this for once. That doesn't run like ass like Raven's Cry, and it looks as good as a non-Unity, non-UE4 3D indie title can. I mean, they did a pretty good job with the custom engine. The soundtrack, for sure, from what I've listened to, leans really heavily on the Conan the Barbarian score for a lot of inspiration. Because we got a brass section, you guys. We're gonna blow the hell out of those horns. Yeah, the animation rigging can be a bit iffy at times, but that's about par for the course. For this game is about PS3, Xbox 360 quality graphics, which is, I mean, still pretty good for what you get on PC these days. But yeah, going back to the dialogue, I mean, after 20 years of playing Dungeons and Dragons, I still cringe when listening to like made up fantasy names. Less is more, people. Less is more. I'll give it 3 cheers.
Let's start with the sounds with this one. It's very clear that the voice actors recorded their lines in different places and with different microphones. Hell, some of them even recorded lines from the exact same dialogue in different days and in different states of mind. That's really the only excuse I can think of to justify the lack of tonal consistency in every single conversation that characters have with one another. The main character, Vulcan, will be talking to Sybil, one of the companions, and he'll be really pissed off, and then in the very next line, he is just completely level-headed, nothing to point at. Dude! That's kind of jarring. And to finish up the sound, I'm gonna give it to the composer guy, Olivier Derivière. He did a good job on the background music whenever you hear it, because when you're in the heat of battle, and combat in this game is stupidly hard, it fits the thematical fantasy setting, as it were. I'm really not complaining about that. The graphics, yeah, they fit. I got nothing to complain about, but there's certainly nothing to write home about either, so I'm going to give it 3 chairs.
All right, so that's 2 chairs for Shiny and Sounds. And up next is Control. Then.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, apparently the controller, this is our excellent controller because fuck all if I'm giving Microsoft 1 dime intentionally, works on Linux, unlike Microsoft on the Windows. There's a huge rage threads and the discussion group on the Steam just, why are you focusing on Linux port when the controller doesn't work right under Windows? Works on Linux, Brad, and better yet, things are logically laid out. I mean, 99.99% of everything I need to do is right there from the get-go. No big complaints about that. There is one thing, though. Every now and then, Mr. Mercenary Pants, he'll do the auto walk. Not the auto moonwalk, which is so just horribly disappointing. But I'll set the controller down, do something, and I look back and, you know, he's in the corner going, you tap it. I mean, it sorts itself. But that's definitely a thing. All in all, didn't try it with the keyboard and gerbil because this really seemed like the sit back, relax type experience. And that's how I enjoyed it via big picture. I'm going to give it 3 chairs. Not too bad.
Yeah, it worked pretty good off of the Xbox controller until I noped that because of some of the combat scenarios in here. Works just as well on the Steam controller as well. The default bindings are sanely laid out. They're about the same as what you get on the Xbox controller. The only weird thing is you got to switch your touchpad to joystick mouse because otherwise the camera controls just outright don't work. The only real issue I had with the controls in this game is blocking is super hit or miss. Like there isn't really a good way to utilize the blocking mechanic aside from just using the daggers and dodging everything until you poke everything to death by 1,000 cuts sort of thing. So I'll give it 3 cheers.
Yeah, the Logitech F310 that I have plugged into the Steam box over there worked fine out of the box. It was properly recognized. The NVIDIA Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. controller here also worked fine if I played it locally on this PC, because if I tried to stream it from the Steam box, it would outright not recognize it. One thing I have to complain about is that while you can rebind like keyboard and mouse inputs, you cannot rebind controller inputs. So since they had the brilliant idea of binding parry to the right trigger, I simply never used it. And I got to the end of the game and got to the final boss fight. I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, no, I never used it. 3 chairs.
Right, that's 3 chairs for the controls. And finally, we got the funds. Then, did it tickle your nipples?
Well, what the fuck is up with your busted-ass map system, Brad? He says with a question mark. How exactly did that meeting go? I said maybe there were 2 guys there, and Guy X, he was like, hey, let's use a large map that you can zoom into and pick quests. And the other guy was like, oh, fuck no. Let's have a bunch of little fucked up maps, and then get this. We're going to stack them on top of each other so the player can only see one zone at a time. Brilliant, brilliant. And they went ahead and made that because that is your quest finding system. You have books with numbers on them sometimes, and you're like, shrug a fucking emoticon. I was like, just heading towards this one. We don't fucking know. Seriously, I was stuck in that first town trying to sort the fucking quest glyphs for so long, I forgot how to fight. I'm going to have to do a brief little tutorial. And I was like, oh shit, I forgot how to do all this stuff. Not that there's much to remember. Swing, swing, dodge, block. I mean, that's basically your fighting mechanic. It's very hollow. Didn't really leave me feeling with good thwackiness. You know, I could go on and on about the faults in this critter, but at the end of the day, it boils down to one thing. It's boring. Seriously. After the first 2 hours, I took off the headphones and started hammering on the B button because I simply didn't care about Dialogue Simulator 2015. And to put a little bow on this, this game might as well be on rails. Seriously, you can't jump. I mean, if you're not on the... oh, look, the platform's that much lower. Maybe I want to go over the little walkway. Nope, you gotta stay on this fixed path. Didn't really like it at all. I mean, it's not horrible. I managed to put 2 ons into it before I realized that it didn't get any better. So I'm going to give it 2 chances.
Yeah, like Ven said, the map is just completely fucked. Some people were just given a crate of whiskey and told to design a navigation system with no regard for the bomber peak whatsoever. I mean, the game really requires you to take a defensive approach because you will get killed to death really, really quickly, and there's not a lot of health potions lying around. So much in the way that Demon Souls or Bloodborne sort of plays, this is the poor man's equivalent of that sort of game. This is the closest we're probably going to get on Linux if you don't really feel like whining this. One thing that was interesting that got brought up right at the beginning, but didn't really have much depth, was the trapping system, because it was sort of an interesting thing. Oh yeah, you can plant these traps all over the place and lure enemies and take a bunch of them out at the same time. And you can do that sort of, kind of, except for the whole, that's really it. There's no real depth to it.
That's because you didn't get to the final boss, Jordan.
Well, sure. I was choking through the dialogue, much like Ven. I mentioned in the Shining Sounds how just listening to people refer to proper nouns and this is painful. And it really is. It got to the point where I was hammering the B button as well. I mean... like this game sort of hit my rage button. I snapped a controller in half because of the combat in this. Occasional game will do that, so I usually take that as a sign. Let's put this down before I start destroying some of my other hardware. I mean, I can respect it for what it attempts to do. It's really just not my type of game. I'll give it 2 cheers.
Yeah. So, Ven and Jordan already mentioned some of the issues that this game has. Now I'm going to get into the rest of them. Why are you showing me my character doing all this amazing shit and all these cutscenes of combat right at the start of the game instead of, giving me a combat tutorial, or at least letting me do that the character is doing? I mean, it's just flailing around for the most part, so I could probably do that. It's kind of a wasted opportunity. And I've actually been through the game once. I got to the final boss and I honestly couldn't be arsed with that fight. But instead of, actually sitting through it and beating the guy, I just went like, you know what? I'm just going to start over again. And I start over and I get these tutorial tips that fill up the entire screen and pause the game right in the middle of combat 90% of the time. And I'm like, why can I not disable this? There is no option to disable this. And the game apparently doesn't register that you've already beaten 99.98% of the game. So, yeah. The plot of the game is so generic and quote-unquote safe that I don't even know why they bother giving you choices. Characters, like the NPC characters, will only rarely acknowledge your decisions at any point other than when you just made said decision. I guess one of the most egregious examples comes from the tutorial itself. The captain asks you to give Peeler, an NPC, some traps, and then, while you're in the temple, he asks you to go look for him. Now, the quest to look for Peeler is a secondary quest, which means you don't have to do it. You can just leave him there to die. Now, whether you rescue him or not is irrelevant, because the captain does not ever mention Peeler again, and for being perfectly honest here, I never see that particular character model used anywhere else in the game at any point. I'm pretty sure it doesn't exist outside of the tutorial. And just to put a bow on the bad stuff, the final boss is... it's just a stupid fuck you hard, because fuck you, that's why. It has a metric fuck ton of HP, and every now and again it conjures a dragon demon thing just because it can. Now, with all that in mind, I love this game. I do. Outside of the last boss, combat is hard but fair. The leveling system gives you a lot of choice. There are like 3 trees that you can put skill points into, and then you have the feats as well to choose what you want your character to be. And out of the bland, generic-ass companions, Mothra's shines as a beacon of interesting personality. He is an amazing companion. Yeah, but you only get it like past the halfway point of the game, so take that for what you will. I'm gonna give it 3 chairs for the fun.
Nobody appreciates Zathras, but Bound by Flame gets 2 chairs for the fun. And finally totals up to 2 whole chairs for the game, which is not sure if want, which means that we got a mixed opinion. If it's your thing, check it out. If not, it was on sale for pretty cheap a couple weeks ago. Yep. So if you picked it up for... what was it, like $6 at the time or some such like that?
$6. It's still $6 right now at the time of recording because the winter sale.
So if you like beat 'em ups in the vein of Bloodborne or what have you, this might be the game for you. If not, then stay away from it. Save your $6. Go buy yourself a $5 footlong and throw a loony at a homeless person. I don't know. Final thoughts?
If you can get it on Hella Cell, I mean, it's something to sit back and play. I mean, this is not Skyrim or anything remotely resembling that. Combat's kind of meh. Dialogue is all over the fucking place, like P-Man was saying. And yeah, I said, I got about 2 hours in. It's like, just quit caring. I mean, the story is not there for me. P-Man?
Yeah, well, I like it, but I can see, objectively, I can see that it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. This is that kind of mediocre game that I wish all mediocre games were like, because most mediocre games, I'm like, it's mediocre. I can't really effectively criticize it or drool all over it, as it were. This one, I can criticize the shit out of, and I still enjoy it. I can see what it's doing right, and I can see what it's doing wrong. The two kind of even out, and they make a pretty mediocre game, but I love it. I like it. So
there you
my
go.
opinion,
Bound by Flame is the Battlefield Earth of Linux gaming.